So now Blake Lively's legal team is bringing Vin Diesel into this. Yes, you heard that right. A lawsuit that started with a Hollywood actress accusing her producer Justin Baldoni of mistreatment on set has now spiraled into a full-blown media circus. Subpoenas are flying, depositions are delayed, Taylor Swift is nowhere to be found, and now somehow we're talking about Fast and Furious star Vin Diesel in official court filings. This isn't just a legal battle anymore. This is a war of public perception, celebrity reputation, and carefully calculated distractions. And it's all happening in real time on social media, in court documents, and behind the scenes in Hollywood's most powerful boardrooms. So let's break it all down. Blake Lively, who for months has presented herself as the brave voice fighting back against abuse in the industry, is now being accused of delaying discovery, dodging depositions, and manipulating media narratives. Her team says she's willing to testify, yet they keep requesting more time. They say she's cooperative, but they refuse to let her be questioned in a neutral setting by Justin Baldoni's attorney Bryan Freedman, and now in what might be one of the most desperate legal maneuvers yet, her team is dragging Vin Diesel's name into the case to try and smear Freedman. Why? Because Freedman is currently representing Vin Diesel in a completely unrelated sexual assault case, and in that case Diesel missed a deposition. Now Blake's team is saying, well, if Freedman defended that, then he can't point fingers at us for our delays. Excuse me, what does Vin Diesel's failure to appear in his own legal battle have to do with Blake Lively's refusal to be deposed in this one? Absolutely nothing, except that both men share the same high-powered attorney. That's the only connection, but for Blake's team that's enough to start muddying the waters. They're no longer fighting with facts, they're weaponizing associations, and it doesn't stop there. They've also launched a coordinated PR blitz to make it seem like Blake is being targeted unfairly. They're saying she's scared to be in Bryan Freedman's office for her deposition, that she needs extra protection, that she doesn't feel safe, that she'd rather testify at her own lawyer's office, as if that's not a massive conflict of interest. The spin is wild. This is the same woman who stood on global stages, accepted feminist awards, gave speeches about bravery, and positioned herself as a symbol of female strength in the industry. But now when it comes time to actually back up her claims under oath, she's flinching. She's moving deadlines, she's pushing for procedural changes, she's suddenly afraid. And while her team stalls, they're still trying to drown the public in sympathy content. Just last week, People magazine ran a completely unmarked ad disguised as a fluff piece about her beverage company Betty Buzz. The headline: Blake Lively can't keep this flavor in stock, my husband and I drink 5 a day, all while her lawsuit is unraveling in court. It's more than tone deaf, it's strategic distraction. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni, the man at the center of her allegations, has remained mostly silent. His legal team is doing the talking. No product launches, no interviews, no manipulation. Just court filings, video evidence, and legal pressure. And let's not forget, Blake already has the footage she's demanding. Over 150 hours of behind-the-scenes film from the production they're fighting over. She's reviewed it before, she helped edit the movie. But now suddenly she wants all of it resent, this time with audio. Why? Because she's hoping to find something, anything. A clip, a noise, a facial expression that she can twist into a new narrative. This is what lawyers call a fishing expedition. And it's exactly what Bryan Freedman has accused her team of doing, dragging out the process. Not to uncover truth, but to rewrite history. Even more disturbing, we're now hearing whispers that Ryan Reynolds, Blake's husband, was barred by her own legal team from attending her deposition. A source close to the case claims he wanted to be there to support her, but her attorneys told him no because his presence would be a distraction. Think about that. The man who once screamed on the phone at Baldoni for fat-shaming his wife is now being told to stand down. His presence, once considered a protective force, is now a liability, and apparently Blake agreed. Reluctantly, as the source puts it, but she agreed. If that doesn't scream trouble behind the scenes, what does? And then, just when you think it couldn't get messier, Armie Hammer shows up in a podcast spewing total misinformation about the lawsuit. He claims the whole thing is about an emoji, that the $400 million defamation suit was thrown out over a winking face being edited out of an article. He's not only wrong, he sounds completely clueless, and some are now wondering, is this cluelessness? Or is it strategic deflection because of Hollywood pressure? Was he warned? Was he advised to back off? Could Blake's camp or even Ryan Reynolds have reached out to make sure he doesn't say anything to real? Because Armie used to act alongside Blake. He used to take classes with Baldoni. He's been there, he's seen things. But now he's refusing to talk. All of this, from the desperate delay tactics to the bizarre celebrity name drops, paints a picture of someone trying to outrun the truth. Someone who may not have the evidence they claimed. Someone who's trying to control the clock rather than face the consequences. And as we inch closer to deposition day and the clock runs out on Blake Lively's legal stall tactics, we're going to see just how much of her case is built on truth and how much is built on PR, because the courtroom doesn't care about star power. It doesn't care about who you're married to or how many soda flavors you can't keep in stock. All that matters is the facts, and right now the facts are catching up to Blake Lively fast. Let's start with the biggest shock of the week. Vin Diesel's name showing up in Blake Lively's legal filings. No, he's not being sued by Justin Baldoni. No, he's not a witness. No, he has absolutely no direct involvement in this lawsuit. But Blake's team is now strategically invoking his name not because it's legally necessary, but because it's tactically useful, and that alone tells you everything you need to know about the direction this case is going. According to the court documents, the argument being made by Lively's attorneys is that Bryan Freedman, Baldoni's powerhouse attorney, lacks credibility when criticizing deposition delays because he's allegedly been involved in similar behavior himself. Their example, a completely separate SAW case involving Vin Diesel where Freedman also serves as counsel. In that case, Vin Diesel allegedly failed to appear at a scheduled deposition, which caused a fiery altercation between Freedman and the opposing attorney. That incident, reported by TMZ, supposedly escalated to the point of threats and near physical confrontation. Whether or not that account is accurate is up for debate, but one thing is clear: Blake's team is now trying to use that unrelated moment to paint Freedman as unstable, hostile, and unprofessional. It's a clear character smear, and it's not subtle, but let's be honest, this is a massive deflection. None of this has anything to do with the core issue in the Baldoni v. Lively lawsuit. Whether Blake Lively made defamatory and false statements that led to the implosion of a major film project and a massive reputational hit for Justin Baldoni and his production company, bringing up Vin Diesel's unrelated legal troubles to make a point about deposition etiquette. That's not just a stretch, it's embarrassingly desperate. Let's talk about Bryan Freedman for a second. This is not some newbie lawyer who's out of his depth. He's a Hollywood legal legend, the guy people call when careers are on the line. He's represented clients in the most high-profile cases, involving some of the biggest names in entertainment, and his reputation is built on one thing: results. That's why Baldoni hired him in the first place. And now, because Blake Lively wants to postpone her own deposition for the 4th or 5th time, depending on how you count the filings, her team is reaching for anything to throw back at Freedman. But it gets worse. Blake's team isn't just using Vin Diesel's legal troubles to deflect. They're also claiming that Freedman's past behavior in that case shows he has a pattern of aggression and confrontation. Let's pause here. Think about what that implies. They're suggesting that Bryan Freedman, an officer of the court, is too aggressive to conduct a lawful deposition. If this was about protecting Blake Lively's safety, wouldn't there be a formal motion for a protective order? Wouldn't they request a neutral third-party location? Maybe even a court monitor or security presence? But no. Instead, they're cherry-picking a random TMZ report about an entirely separate case and using it as a PR stunt to sway public opinion. This isn't about safety. This is about PR warfare. Now let's talk about the growing contradiction at the heart of Blake Lively's entire legal strategy, and it's one that's impossible to ignore. On one hand, her team is loudly accusing Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios of delaying discovery, of not producing evidence on time, and of playing games with the schedule. They say these delays are preventing Blake from getting a fair chance to prepare her case and defend herself. But on the other hand, they're the ones filing for extensions, rescheduling depositions, and arguing for more time. It's like trying to have your cake and eat it too, only the cake is made of red tape and hypocrisy. In a recent filing, Blake's attorneys asked the court to move the deposition deadline from August 14th to September 30th. That's nearly a 2-month delay in a case that's already dragging on far longer than originally intended. And what's the reason? They say 20 depositions need to be completed, and there simply isn't enough time. But here's the thing: those 20 depositions are mostly from Blake's own witness list. These are people her team insisted on interviewing. Her team set the pace, and now they're complaining about it, and the court is starting to lose patience. At the same time, the final deadline for all discovery, meaning evidence production, video footage, emails, texts, and everything else both parties want to use at trial, is set for July 25th, which is just days away. And guess what? Blake's team is still asking for more materials, claiming what they've received so far isn't good enough. They've been given hours of footage, allegedly more than 150 hours of raw film from the set. But now they're saying it doesn't have audio. They're demanding all video content be delivered again, but this time with full sound. That raises an obvious question: why do they need the same footage? Again, and the answer seems clear: Blake is trying to do a post hoc reconstruction of events. She's watched this footage before she even helped edit the film in question. But now she wants a second look, hoping to discover or invent new narratives. This is what's known in legal terms as a fishing expedition. If you don't have evidence, you keep looking until you find something, or at least until you can build a new story around what little you do have, and that's what this feels like. Her team is stalling not because they're building a defense, but because they're trying to create one from thin air. Now here's where things take a bizarre emotional turn. Blake Lively no longer wants to be deposed at Bryan Freedman's office. Instead, she's demanding that her deposition take place at her own lawyer's firm, claiming that she feels unsafe at Freedman's office because she's a high-profile celebrity and needs protection. Let's get real for a second. Depositions are filmed, transcribed, and monitored. They're conducted in highly controlled, secure, and professional environments. Freedman's office is not a back alley, it's a Beverly Hills legal fortress. And if Blake's concern is truly about privacy and safety, she can bring her own security team, her own legal staff, even have a court reporter present. But that's not what's really happening here. What she wants is home turf advantage. She wants to be surrounded by her own people in her own comfort zone where she can control the room. Because she knows that once she sits across from Freedman, she's going to be grilled. And the tape will roll, and when that happens, there will be no do-overs. And let's not forget, Bryan Freedman isn't just an attorney, he's the guy who famously handled the Gabrielle Union NBC fallout, Megyn Kelly's exit from NBC, and the Chris Harrison Bachelor controversy. He's known for holding powerful people accountable, and Blake Lively is not exempt. Here's another bombshell: Ryan Reynolds wanted to attend Blake's deposition, and her team shut him down. That's right, according to Insider Leaks reported. To Rob Shooter, Reynolds wanted to be present to show support for his wife, but her legal team said absolutely not. Why? Because in their words, this isn't Hollywood, it's a legal battle, and Ryan is a distraction. That's deeply telling. If Ryan were truly a calming presence for Blake, wouldn't having him there help her give a stronger, clearer deposition? You'd think so, but her legal team clearly thought otherwise. And the fact that she agreed to go solo, albeit reluctantly, tells us everything. She knows that this is a war zone, and even her own husband isn't welcome on the battlefield. And you have to wonder if Ryan's presence would be too much pressure. What does that say about their dynamic behind the scenes? Let's not forget how aggressively Ryan has defended Blake in the past. There were reports that he screamed at Justin Baldoni for allegedly fat-shaming Blake during production. Whether that actually happened is up for debate, but it paints a clear picture. Ryan can be intense, controlling, and deeply involved. That kind of energy in a deposition room could make things worse, not better, which leads to the next question. Is this creating tension in their marriage? The source that leaked this info said it best: she loves him, but this is war. And that line alone says more than any filing could. Because once your legal team tells your spouse to sit this one out, the cracks are already showing. But that's not the only PR disaster unfolding. Blake Lively is under renewed scrutiny for her silence in another high-profile Hollywood case, this one involving Devin Labella, the actress, who accused Kevin Costner of forcing her into a rap scene on one of his film sets. Devin is suing Costner and alleging she was coerced into an uncomfortable and traumatic situation. It's a major moment for the Me Too movement, and yet Blake has said nothing, and people are noticing. Where's the Blake Lively who gave that Time 100 speech about believing women, amplifying their voices, and standing up to powerful men? Where is the Blake who portrayed herself as a brave victim standing up against Baldoni? Suddenly, when the accused is Kevin Costner, Blake goes radio silent. Why is it because Costner is too powerful to cross? Is it because she's afraid of alienating allies in Hollywood, or is it simply because the victim in this case isn't Blake herself, and she doesn't see any upside in speaking up? Whatever the reason, it's not a good look, especially when people are digging up her past statements supporting Woody Allen and her silence during the Harvey Weinstein scandals. Her credibility as an advocate for women is deeply compromised, and this only makes it worse. Meanwhile, as if that weren't enough, Blake's PR team is out here promoting her drink brand Betty Buzz in People magazine, right in the middle of her legal firestorm. The article is framed as a lifestyle puff piece, but make no mistake, it's an ad. It features quotes like "My husband and I drink 5 Betty Buzzes a day," with direct links to Amazon, where you can buy them for 30% off. And the only disclaimer is a line buried in tiny print at the bottom: "We may receive compensation." That's a clear violation of FTC guidelines for affiliate marketing. Sponsored content has to be labeled clearly and prominently. This was not. It looks like editorial, but it's clearly promotional and potentially illegal. Some online critics are already calling for the Federal Trade Commission to investigate. Because this kind of manipulation using a celebrity's legal drama to quietly push a product is unethical at best and deceptive at worst. It also screams desperation. Sales for Betty Buzz have reportedly plummeted since the lawsuit made headlines, and this feels like a last-ditch effort to move inventory. And then, as if on cue, Dr. Leslie Dobson, the social media psychologist, who's been one of Blake's loudest defenders, showed up in the comments section of a Page 6 article about Blake's upcoming deposition. Her comment that depositions aren't the hot seat and that it's just a relaxed recorded conversation, spoken like someone who's never been grilled by Bryan Freedman. Let's be clear, depositions are serious legal events, especially in a case involving reputational destruction, potential perjury, and multi-million-dollar claims. They're recorded, they're strategic, they're surgical. And if Blake Lively has no hard evidence, then she's going to have to sit there and answer questions based purely on memory, narrative, and emotion. That's a dangerous game, because lies are hard to remember, and inconsistencies get exposed quickly, especially when you're facing off with an expert like Freedman. Dobson's attempt to downplay the deposition process only highlights how far Blake's defenders are willing to go to rewrite reality. Let's shift gears, because if you thought Blake Lively's legal drama couldn't get any weirder, Armie Hammer just proved you wrong. Yes, that Armie Hammer, the disgraced actor known more recently for disturbing allegations involving emotional abuse, manipulation, and even cannibalism-related fantasies, who's been trying to claw his way back into the industry with a string of awkward podcast appearances, somehow inserted himself into this narrative, or rather got pulled in. He was recently on a podcast where the host casually brought up Blake Lively and the Baldoni lawsuit. And let me tell you, the moment was jaw-dropping, not because of what Hammer knew, but because of what he didn't. Apparently, Armie thinks the entire lawsuit was thrown out and that it all boiled down to, wait for it, an emoji. Yes, he literally said that the whole $400 million defamation suit was over a winking face emoji that was edited out of a New York Times story. That's his understanding, and this is where you can hear the wheels coming off. To be fair, he's referring to that infamous upside-down smiley emoji one that Justin Baldoni's team argues was intentionally removed to change the tone and intent of a statement published in the Times. That emoji was supposed to signal sarcasm, levity, or at the very least that Baldoni wasn't being literal in his response. The NYT removed it, publishing only the plaintext statement, which they then used to frame Baldoni in a completely different light. But let's be clear, the lawsuit is not about the emoji. That's a detail, an important one, yes, but it's not the heart of the case. The suit centers on false allegations, character assassination, and the coordinated takedown of a man's career and company through leaked text, media manipulation, and a campaign of innuendo. It's about the use of influence to poison relationships and reputations behind the scenes. It's about who knew what, who said what, and who pushed what into the press, all under the veneer of advocacy. And yet Armie Hammer thinks it's about emojis. Either he's playing dumb or he truly has no idea what's been going on, which might explain why he was so quickly canceled from Hollywood in the first place. Tone Deaf doesn't even begin to cover it, but here's the kicker. The moment Armie tried to bring up Blake Lively and the legal mess, he stopped himself, refused to comment, shut it down. And now fans are speculating, was he warned? Did someone, maybe even Ryan Reynolds himself, make a call after Armie's earlier appearance on Billy Bush, where he shared that he used to take acting classes with Justin Baldoni and that Baldoni seemed like a nice guy, because now he won't even say that much. And remember, Armie once played Blake Lively's love interest on Gossip Girl. They shared a kissing scene, and when he was asked if she was a good kisser, he awkwardly said, "I don't even remember," followed by, "I wouldn't say if I did." Come on, you're an actor, of course you remember, you just don't want to get involved. And maybe that's the smart move, but it's also telling. Hollywood is full of people who claim to stand for justice and truth until it risks burning a bridge, then suddenly they're silent. But silence speaks volumes. And while Armie fumbles through damage control and Blake hides behind product promotions and legal filings, the internet has moved on to a more serious question. Why isn't Blake supporting other women right now? Let's go back to Devin Labella. This is a woman who has courageously stepped forward with allegations against Kevin Costner, alleging that he coerced her into participating in a rap scene during a film production. The lawsuit is gaining momentum. Her story is detailed, emotional, raw. And where is Blake Lively? This is the same woman who just last year was giving speeches at the Time 100 Gala, talking about using her platform to empower women to believe victims, to challenge toxic systems. She spoke passionately about how silence is a weapon used by abusers, that staying quiet is what allows systemic harm to continue. But now, when she has the perfect chance to stand beside another woman, someone facing the same industry machinery that she claims to have faced. She's nowhere to be found. Why, let's be honest, Blake Lively's feminism has always been branded, carefully curated, wrapped in Gucci, and presented on red carpets. But when it comes time to actually do the work to stand up, even when it's risky, she's Mia, and that's what makes her current legal crusade feel so self-serving. This isn't about justice, it's not about making the industry safer. It's about saving face, winning the narrative, and selling sparkling soda. Speaking of soda, let's return to that People magazine disaster. The story is laughably transparent. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds can't keep this Betty Buzz flavor in stock at home. We drink 5 a day. Then it launches into a listicle-style ad pushing her drink flavors with Amazon Prime Day discounts and big yellow shop now buttons. There's no sponsored content label, no big disclosure. Just a tiny footnote that says we may receive compensation. That violates multiple Federal Trade Commission (FTC) guidelines. You cannot bury your disclosures in fine print when the content is promotional in nature. You can't pretend it's editorial if you're getting paid to feature and promote products. It's deceptive, plain and simple. Even more ironic, Blake's legal team has accused Baldoni of manipulating the press for attention. But now she is the one turning her own legal crisis into an ad funnel using People magazine to launder her image and her inventory at the same time. It's giving drink Betty Buzz now with extra deposition delay. This move wasn't just tone deaf, it's potentially illegal. And more people online are calling for formal investigations. They're demanding the FTC take a closer look at the relationships between PR team, celebrity product placement, and supposedly independent publications. And honestly, they should, because this entire situation has become the perfect case study in celebrity privilege, legal manipulation, and PR hypocrisy. Let's also not forget the continued involvement of Dr. Leslie Dobson, a figure who remains deeply entangled in Blake's corner, despite mounting questions about her own credibility. Dobson has been subpoenaed by Baldoni's legal team due to her public commentary and alleged ties to Blake's narrative-building campaign. And yet she continues to downplay every twist in this case. In the page 6 comments section, she brushed off Blake's deposition as no big deal, just a recorded conversation, she said. Let's be clear, that's not how this works. Depositions are legal minefields, especially in a case like this where timelines, facts, and motivations are being challenged under oath. This isn't a podcast interview, this isn't Vogue, this is civil litigation, and what Blake says in that room can and will be used against her. And Dobson knows this. She's not naive, she's a psychologist. She's worked in high-pressure environments. But what she's doing now is gaslighting the public, downplaying the intensity of the process, so that if Blake stumbles, if she cracks under pressure, it can be excused away as no big deal. But again, this only works if people aren't paying attention, and unfortunately for Blake, more and more people are. Now let's turn our attention to someone who's been conspicuously silent throughout this entire legal mess, Taylor Swift. Remember when Blake Lively first dropped her allegations and tried to frame herself as the brave voice standing up for women on set? Her team wasted no time bringing Taylor's name into the conversation. Not officially, but subtly, carefully. Whisper campaigns, press references, sources close to Taylor Swift, and all the usual celebrity spin tactics were suddenly everywhere. But now when Blake is being legally challenged, when she's being called out for inconsistent stories, delays, and PR manipulation, Taylor Swift is nowhere to be found. And for those of us paying attention, that's not just silence, that's strategy. Taylor is one of the most powerful women in the world, and she knows exactly when to speak, when to co-sign, and when to vanish. If she believed Blake had a bulletproof case or a righteous cause, don't you think she'd be subtly liking posts, sharing vague lyrics, or letting her army of PR friends do the talking? But nothing. Radio silence, that's not friendship, that's self-preservation. And it suggests that Taylor, just like the rest of Hollywood, may no longer be willing to put her name on the line for a woman whose legal case is looking shakier by the day. And don't think the media hasn't noticed. At first, many major outlets gave Blake Lively the benefit of the doubt. The headlines were soft. The coverage was respectful. The stories framed her as a mom, an activist, a woman speaking truth to power. But now the tone has changed, and dramatically. Just look at the shift in publications like Page 6, The Hollywood Reporter, and Deadline. The new headlines read more like a post-mortem than a victory lap. Blake Lively faces deposition pressure as legal clock ticks. Baldoni's team accuses Lively of deliberate delays. Video evidence without audio sparks questions about credibility. The coverage is no longer celebratory, it's cautious. Even tabloids that once treated Blake like Hollywood royalty are now hedging their bets. Why? Because they can smell blood in the water. And in Hollywood, loyalty always comes second to survival. Behind the scenes, insiders say Blake's public support is rapidly eroding. Remember when publicists, stylists, and influencers were quick to post supportive messages, glowing comments, and curated IG stories about her bravery? Those have dried up. It's like watching a star fall in real time, and the timing couldn't be worse. Because Blake is about to sit for a recorded videotaped deposition in front of one of the most feared litigators in the industry, Bryan Freedman, and the public will eventually find out what she said, how she said it, and what evidence or lack thereof she brought to the table. If she can't produce hard proof of her claims, if she contradicts her past statements or gets caught in one of the many inconsistencies already flagged by Baldoni's team, her credibility will suffer even more, and it could torpedo what's left of her brand. And that brand is already under immense pressure. Let's go back to those 150 hours of footage Blake's team is still obsessing over. They've had access to it for weeks, even months. Yet now they're saying it's not enough. They want audio. They want Ray delivery. They want more. But as Baldoni's legal team points out, Blake has already seen all this footage. She wasn't just on set, she was involved in post-production. She helped shape the very material she's now pretending to rediscover. That's why her request is being labeled a fishing expedition. She's not trying to find truth, she's trying to invent it. If she could find a smoking gun, she would have produced it by now. If she had damning footage of misconduct, mistreatment, or any kind of abuse, it would have already been filed, time-stamped, and looped in the court of public opinion. But there's nothing, so instead she's stalling and crafting new narratives based on old material. This is where her media game begins to backfire. Because you can't keep pretending to search for evidence when the world knows you already had it. And now there's a new development that might just crack this case wide open.